In the middle of a dusty red square, 3 Apache women hung upside down from a wooden beam. Their bodies covered in bruises, dried blood smeared across their skin. To the townspeople, they were no longer human, just spoils of war to be auctioned off to the highest bidder. Alia, though beaten so badly her shoulders turned purple, still held a fierce, icy stare, proud and defiant, as if her eyes could burn the jeering crowd below. Keta gritted her teeth and endured it all, her body so solid that the ropes seemed ready to snap under the sheer tension of her hidden strength. Mira, the youngest of the 3, had cloudy eyes filled with fear and pain. Yet she kept breathing, holding on until fate made its choice for her. Sheriff Connolly stood below, cracking his whip against the wooden post just for fun, his voice rough and hollow. Took some sweat to catch these 3 Apache snakes. Who wants to buy? We sell in bulk. The men burst out laughing, shouting filthy remarks like stones thrown at the hanging bodies. None of them stopped to think that these Apache women once had families, had a tribe, had laughter and nights around blazing campfires. In that loud and rowdy crowd, one man stood still, a widowed rancher. He looked up at the women as if seeing himself in their place, broken, exhausted, but still unbowed. When the sheriff yelled, "Starting at $5, the whole square went quiet, waiting for the first bid. Then Isaac's voice cut through the silence, firm and clear. $10. No one laughed anymore. No one had expected a white man to spend money on 3 Apache women. For what purpose? No one knew, but Isaac knew exactly why. They were not merchandise. This was the moment that would change his life and theirs forever. As soon as they left the square, Isaac tightened the reins and urged the horse to move faster, away from the curious stares still watching. The wagon rocked and jolted, red dust rising every time the wheels crunched over the gravel road. The 3 Apache women lay on a bed of straw in the back. They were no longer hanging upside down, but their bodies still trembled from pain and exhaustion. The evening wind blew across the prairie, carrying the faint scent of scorched grass, but for them, the wind only burned deeper into their open wounds. Alia opened her eyes first. She tried to lift her head, but a sharp pain in her shoulder sent her whole body into a spasm. Even so, her gaze remained sharp as a blade. She studied Isaac, the man sitting up front, his back straight, his shoulders thin, but solid. He did not look like a slave trader. He did not reek of whiskey. His eyes held no hunger, only a heavy silence, like a man who had lost too much. Keta spat out a bit of dried blood and spoke in a faint Apache growl. "Alia, what does he want?" Alia did not answer. She did not know. Mira kept trembling, curling into herself as if trying to vanish from the world. Isaac heard the groans from behind and gripped the reins tighter. He did not turn around, afraid they would think he meant to control or intimidate them. After traveling about half a mile, he stopped at the edge of a dried-up stream far from the townsfolk, far from any hostile gaze. He climbed down and unlatched the back of the wagon. The 3 women flinched, their warrior instincts kicking in despite having no strength left to fight. Isaac raised both hands slowly, every movement careful, measured, so as not to frighten them further. "No one is going to hurt you anymore," he said in a low, gravelly voice worn down by dust, but so genuine that even the wind seemed to pause and listen. "I did not buy slaves." He pulled out a small knife. All 3 women tensed. Keta even tried to sit up despite her torn wounds. But Isaac only knelt down and began cutting the ropes, digging into their wrists. Deep bruises marked their sunburned skin. Alia stared at him, eyes wide with both disbelief and suspicion. "I just wanted you to be free," Isaac said. "That $10 was not to buy people. $10 was to reclaim your lives from those monsters." Alia let out a faint, bitter laugh, part mocking, part aching. "Freedom? On white man's land? We step away from here, and we get shot. Is that freedom?" Isaac stayed silent for a moment, then said the words that changed everything. "If you have nowhere else to go, my ranch has space. There is food, there is shelter. My daughter needs someone to help care for her. And I..." He paused, breathing softly. "I need someone who knows what it means to hurt and still keep living." The wind stilled. Then Alia pushed herself up on one arm. Keta pulled Mira closer. The 3 of them exchanged a look, one heavy with meaning. but no words. Isaac took a step back. "Stay or go, it is your choice." Alia stared into his eyes, not like an enemy, but for the first time, like someone searching for truth. She spoke slowly. "We will come with you. Not because we trust you, but because for once, a white man did not treat us like animals." The three women rose, staggering, but proud, and together, they walked toward the man who had bought their freedom for $10. Isaac's wooden house sat tucked away in the middle of the vast prairie. When the wagon came to a stop, the three Apache women stood still. None of them stepped down right away. They stared at the small house, with its weathered roof, the leaning stable, and the dry well so different from their village land, but still a place without whips and ropes. Isaac opened the door and stepped aside, as if they were guests arriving for a visit, not women he had just rescued from torture. Inside, Lydia, a blonde-haired girl of about 8, clutched a handmade cloth doll. When she saw the strangers, she hid behind her father, her eyes wide like drops of fear. Caleb, 16 years old, stepped out from the kitchen doorway with an axe in hand. He said nothing, but his stare was sharp, the kind of look white people had given Apache for years of war, suspicion, hatred, and deadly caution. Isaac placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder, gentle but firm. "No one in this house is going to harm them. Understood?" Caleb pressed his lips tight. He did not agree, but he did not argue either. Silence was his only reply. Alia stepped inside first. Every step sent pain shooting through her shoulder, but she held her back straight. Kata followed, her eyes sweeping the room like a wounded animal ready to fight. Mira moved the slowest, clutching the torn edge of her dress to hide her trembling. The air inside the house felt thick, so silent it seemed even a single breath could spark a war. Isaac nodded toward the old pots on the stove. "I have some bean soup. Not much flavor, but it will fill you." Alia glanced at Keta. Keta nodded. The three of them sat at the table but did not touch the spoons. Their hands rested on their laps, just inches from open wounds. Lydia, curiosity edging out fear, crept forward. She held out a small piece of bread to Mira, a simple gesture, but in that moment, it felt like the first crack in a wall built from years of hate. Mira accepted it, her eyes wet and shaking. It had been so long since someone offered her food with clean hands. Caleb scoffed. "So what, we feed them now? Just wait until one night they slit our throats?" The words made Keta leap to her feet, the chair crashing behind her, her fist clenched by instinct, ready to strike. Alia reached out and stopped her. Shaking her head, she would not allow blood to be spilled in the house they had just entered. Isaac turned and looked Caleb straight in the eyes, not with anger, but with a strength that made clear where the line had been drawn. "They are here, and from today on, they are part of this household." The room fell silent. That first night passed quietly, with nothing but the sound of breathing and the wind whistling beyond the door. Alia, Keta, and Mira lay near the stove. None of them slept deeply. Every creak and whisper made them bolt upright in fear. But even with the fear, even with the scars, for the first time in many months of pain, no one beat them. No one hung them upside down. No one tried to sell them. They had stepped into a home, not yet a family, but maybe, just maybe, it could become one. The first days at the Rowan Ranch passed as heavy as the gray sky over the frontier. No one spoke more than a few words to each other. Alia, Keta, and Mira lived in constant alert, while Caleb kept his distance like even one step closer might set everything off. But life on the frontier did not allow anyone to just sit and breathe. Work demanded hands, and it was that rough, necessary labor that became the first bridge between two worlds. That morning, Isaac assigned the task of fetching water from the well to Caleb and Keta. The well was halfway dry, requiring deep scooping and a rusty pulley system. Caleb frowned. He did not like being paired with an Apache, but Isaac gave him a long, quiet look. Caleb sighed and grabbed the bucket, walking ahead. Keta followed in silence. At the well, Caleb tugged at the rope, but the dry pulley groaned with every turn, a sound like metal crying out. Caleb gritted his teeth, pulling with both arms, but the water only crept up by inches. Keta stepped forward without a word. The boy shot her a glare. "Don't." But she had already taken the rope. With a single, powerful pull, the heavy line rose like it weighed nothing. Caleb stood frozen. Not because of her strength, but because she did it without looking down on him. She helped simply because she knew how. Pretty strong, Caleb muttered, though he tried to hide the truth in his voice. Keta smirked, not quite a smile, but for the first time, her face was no longer carved from stone. Inside the house, Alia was showing Lydia how to thread dry seeds into a bracelet. Lydia's tiny fingers followed Alia's guidance carefully, her eyes lighting up with joy every time a bead landed in the right place. "It's so pretty," Lydia beamed. Alia paused for a second. That simple praise brought back memories of the women in her tribe, who once taught her the same way. It was a warmth mixed with a sting. But when Lydia wrapped her little arms around Alia's wrist to show off the bracelet, Alia laughed. Her first laugh since the day she was captured. From the kitchen doorway, Isaac watched with a soft smile, rare and full of quiet gratitude. In the backyard, Mira was helping Isaac gather firewood. Her hands were small, but she worked diligently and with care. Each time a loud noise startled her, she flinched. Isaac said nothing. He simply moved the pile of wood closer so she would not have to bend too far. A small gesture, but enough for Mira to feel that this was not a place where whips cracked. One evening, they sat around the fire. No one spoke much, just the soft crackling of burning wood. Suddenly, Alia began to sing an old Apache lullaby, low and full of sorrow. Lydia leaned her head against her shoulder. Mira swayed gently to the rhythm. Keta closed her eyes, tilting her head slightly to soak in the warmth of the fire and this strange new feeling of safety. Caleb looked around. He said nothing, but his eyes had changed. For the first time since Isaac's wife passed away, there was music in the house. And in the quiet of the prairie, something unnamed was beginning to grow, harmony and hope. Thank you so much for being here with me. Let us know where you're listening from. And if this story has touched your heart, please consider subscribing to the channel to support me. All I truly wish is for you to be safe and happy wherever you are listening to this story. That morning, soft golden sunlight streamed through the old wooden slats. Lydia's cheerful giggles echoed in the yard. Isaac's hammer struck rhythmically as he fixed the barn door. Alia and Mira were hanging clothes to dry. Keta was helping Caleb split firewood. No one knew that this fragile piece was about to be torn apart. From the distance came the sound of hooves, 4, then 6 horses, men's loud, rowdy laughter. Caleb turned his head, and the color drained from his face. "Sheriff," he whispered. Alia instantly laid her hand on the small knife Isaac had given her for protection. Mira began to tremble. Keta took a step forward. Her warrior instincts nearly fully awakened. The barn door swung open. Isaac stepped out and saw the riders approaching like a storm. Sheriff Connolly led the group, followed by 3 townsmen built like bulls, their faces flushed with alcohol. "Rowan," the sheriff barked, his voice thick with the authority of a man used to pushing others around. "We came back to collect the property you bought at the auction." Alia stood beside Isaac. When the sheriff saw her, he sneered. "You think $10 bought you the right to keep 3 Apache devils? Wrong. That sale was just me clearing out the trash. Now, I am here to take it back." Isaac stood tall. He did not shout, but his voice was clear enough to make both Keta and Caleb instinctively rise to stand beside him. "I did not buy slaves," Isaac said. "I bought their freedom." And the moment the ropes came off, they stopped belonging to anyone. One of the townsmen spat on the ground. "Apaches do not have a right to freedom." Keta stepped forward by half a stride. The man flinched. Her stare alone could make iron bend. The sheriff tried to regain control. "Rowan, I do not want trouble, but the town is whispering. They say you are harboring tribal murderers. So, either hand over these 3 women, or..." Alia lifted her chin, her eyes sharp as a blade. "Or what?" The sheriff jutted out his chin. "Or I will burn this place to the ground." That was when Caleb stepped fully beside Alia. The same boy who once hated them now gripped the handle of his axe, ready. Lydia ran out and clung to Isaac's leg, scared, but standing her ground. It was a sight that made the whole group of horsemen hesitate. A white man, a teenage boy, a little girl, 3 Apache women, standing together, not divided by race, not by blood, just one home worth defending. The sheriff looked at them, then at the fire in their eyes. He clenched his jaw. Fine, Rowan. But I am warning you, this is not over. Then let it end here, Isaac replied. The sheriff turned his horse. The other 3 men cursed under their breath, but followed. The group disappeared into the red dust. Isaac exhaled deeply. Alia slowly lowered her knife. Caleb let go of the axe, his shoulders trembling from the adrenaline. No one said a word, but they all understood. Today, they had fought as a family. After the encounter with the sheriff, everything at the Rowan Ranch shifted not with noise, but with a quiet bond, solid like oak roots clinging deep into hard ground. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew. Ever since they stood in that line together in the yard, their fates had woven together like ropes too tightly knotted to ever come undone. Mornings grew busier, but they also began to feel warmer. Caleb no longer avoided Keta. Now, they worked together as a team, the hot-headed white teenager and the quiet Apache warrior, so different, yet oddly fitting together. One morning, when they needed to move a heavy rock from the garden, Caleb struggled with the crowbar, barely making it budge. Keta walked up, said nothing, just placed her hand at the end of the bar to brace with him. Go slow. Follow my count, she said. Caleb nodded. 1, 2, 3. The rock popped out of the hole. Caleb's eyes widened. You're really strong. Keta simply replied, You are not bad yourself. It was the first time Caleb smiled comfortably in front of her. Inside the house, Mira no longer flinched at loud noises. Lydia often took her by the hand and led her outside, showing her all the small wonders only a child could find magical. A golden butterfly, a tiny bird's nest, even the skinny old cat from the ranch despite its constant grumpiness. One afternoon, Lydia brought Mira to the hilltop, where clusters of violet wildflowers grew. Mira, once too afraid to even lift her head, now stood in the field, her dress swaying in the wind, wearing a soft smile so faint only the observant would notice. But Isaac saw it, and he knew the girl was slowly becoming a person again. Not just a shadow beaten down by the past. Alia had become Isaac's right hand in almost everything. She had grown up around horses in her tribe, could read the wind, and even listen to the ground to sense coming rain. Isaac often stood beside her in the barn, the soft light of early morning making their faces feel closer than usual. You fixed the saddle wrong, Alia said, her voice low but gentle. Isaac chuckled. I have been fixing things wrong ever since my wife passed. They stood in silence for a moment. Alia looked at him, a long, searching look, as if she could see every unspoken wound he carried. In the evenings, during dinner, Alia sat across from Isaac. They did not speak much, but sometimes, just a glance between them was enough to say that both were slowly piecing their hearts back together. By the weekend, the little family had built part of a new fence, added another garden bed, and cleaned out the old barn. No one had expected 3 Apache women to work so skillfully, so harmoniously. But the truth was, they torn from their own tribe were now finding a new one, right in the place they had once feared most, a white man's home. When night fell, they all gathered around the fire. Isaac told stories about his late wife, a gentle woman who loved flowers and quiet things. Alia listened, her eyes softening. Mira leaned on Lydia's shoulder. Keta and Caleb argued playfully over who had chopped more wood. No one had to say it, but it was clear. These were no longer just 3 women rescued from the edge. This was a family, a strange family, a bold family, but so real that even the night wind seemed to slow down just to listen. Peace at the Rowan Ranch did not last long. Rumors about the white family sheltering 3 Apache women spread across Redemption Creek faster than desert wind. And once those whispers reached the ears of bloodthirsty men, something terrible was bound to happen. That afternoon, as the sunset burned its final streak of red along the hills, Caleb was teaching Mira how to shoot a bow when the thunder of hooves echoed through the land. He turned, his face pale. Father, they are coming again. Alia instantly pulled Lydia inside. Keta grabbed the axe so swiftly that Caleb barely had time to react. Isaac stepped onto the porch, his eyes darkening. He had known this day might come, but he had not expected them to return with twice the numbers. Sheriff Connolly led the mob, followed by 7 or 8 armed men, rifles, nooses, wooden clubs. Their faces were flushed like roasted veal, reeking of whiskey and rage. "Rowan!" the sheriff roared. "This time, we are not here to talk. Hand over those 3 women, now." Alia stepped onto the porch. Keta stood right beside her, shoulders drawn tight like a bowstring. Mira was behind them, but her gaze no longer trembled like it had in the beginning. Instead, it carried a new, quiet steel. Isaac said nothing. He stood between them like a pillar, the only thing keeping the storm from crashing through. The sheriff cracked his whip on the ground. "Rowan, do not be a fool. The town is scared the Apaches will rise up. You keep those 3, you are turning your back on your own kind." Isaac stepped down the porch, calm but sharp as iron. "What exactly am I betraying? Whom have I betrayed? I am choosing to protect innocent people. If that troubles you, the problem lies with you." One drunken man behind the sheriff stepped forward and spat at Isaac's feet. "Why can't you understand? They are savages. We are here to reclaim town property." Alia's lips curled. "Property?" That word cracked like a stone through glass. She walked forward, the wind blowing her long black hair behind her. "If it is war you want, we are not running." Keta rested her hand on the axe handle. Caleb raised the pistol Isaac had given him. Mira stood in the doorway, one hand wrapped around Lydia's shoulder, but her gaze was locked on the mob ahead. The family stood in a line not divided by white or Apache. There were only 2 sides now. Those who came to destroy this home, and those ready to die to defend it. The sheriff saw them, and his face changed. He had not expected the Rowans to stand so firmly. And none of the drunken men wanted to be the first to face 3 Apache warriors, a hardened man, a fire-eyed teenager, and a child who would not let go of her sister's hand. The air stretched tight as a drawn string. A crow flew overhead, its raspy cry splitting the silence. The sheriff clenched his jaw, then jerked his head. "Pull back." "But, you want to die? Stay." The sheriff snapped, and so they did retreat, into the red dust, into their fury, into a shame none of them dared name. As the hoofbeats faded, Isaac's shoulders relaxed. Alia let out a slow breath. Keta lowered her axe. Caleb grinned like he had just won a war. Lydia clung to Mira's leg, and Mira for the first time stood tall without trembling. No one spoke aloud, but they all understood. Today, they had not just defended the ranch. They had defended their new family. Summer drifted by slowly, as if the vast prairie itself wanted to offer a quiet pause for those who had endured too much loss. Since the standoff with the sheriff, no one dared come near the Rowan ranch again. People might whisper behind their backs, point from a distance, but no one stepped forward to break the home that 5 people, once strangers, once enemies, had built with courage and compassion. For the first time in years, the cornfields gave a good harvest. The horse barn had been repaired, and the new fence stood straight and proud. In every wooden beam, in every row of soil, the fingerprints of each person remained. Alia's care, Keta's strength, Mira's gentleness, Caleb's fire, Lydia's joy, and Isaac, the quiet force who held them all together. Each night brought laughter around the dinner table. Mira no longer flinched when a spoon hit the floor. Keta and Caleb now raced each other to hunt mountain goats like 2 mischievous kids. Lydia wore the bracelet Alia had made her every single day, proudly showing it to anyone she met. And Alia stood closer to Isaac now, whenever they worked side by side. No more distance. No more fragile barriers of fear or hatred. One evening, under the hush of the wind, Alia sat with Isaac on the front porch. They gazed across the darkening prairie under the moonlight. Neither spoke, but their silence was the kind shared by 2 souls who understood each other without a single word. "I never thought I would feel this again," Isaac whispered. Alia tilted her head. "Feel what?" "That I am no longer alone." Alia looked down at her hands, hands that had once been bound, beaten, and hung before a hateful crowd. Now, those same hands rested beside Isaac's, just inches apart. And for the first time, she wanted to close that distance. One late afternoon, as the prairie glowed gold beneath the setting sun, Isaac called Alia outside. He stood in the middle of the field, the wind tugging gently at his now graying hair. Alia walked toward him, her heart beating with the breeze. Kada and Caleb peeked from a distance, and Lydia clutched Mira's hand, whispering, "Papa is about to say something big." Isaac knelt. Alia froze, not because she did not expect it, but because the moment was more beautiful than anything she had ever allowed herself to dream. Isaac pulled out a rough silver ring, its edges imperfect, yet it caught the golden light like a tiny flame. "Alia, you brought laughter back to Lydia, strength to Caleb, a home for Mira, and life back to me." He took a deep breath, voice shaking but steady. "Will you be my wife?" The wind held still. Even the prairie seemed to listen. Alia stepped forward. She placed her hand gently on Isaac's cheek, a motion so tender it surprised even her. "If only you knew. I chose long ago." She held out her hand, and Isaac slipped the ring on. A family once tied together by pain and fear now stood united beneath the golden sky. Alia Keta Mira Caleb Lydia and Isaac. No more lines between white and Apache. No more loneliness that stretched for 10 years. Only one thing remained simple, but powerful on this unforgiving land. Love and kindness may begin with just $10, but it takes a whole heart to keep them alive. My friend, there are people who appear in our lives like a small flame in the darkest night, quiet, unassuming, but warm enough to save an entire soul. They are the ones who reach out when others turn away, who give even when they have little. Their kindness is not for reward, but to remind the world that humanity still has a place. And it is those quiet souls who are the reason this world has never lost all hope. Above all else, I truly hope that you will always be safe and happy. I love each and every one of you, the dear listeners of Wild West Storytelling. Let me know what you felt about this story. Leave a comment below. Type the number 1 if you enjoyed this story. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more thrilling tales of the Wild West.